Let's now shift our attention to the biggest story to have emanated from the United States of America this week. And this is a story that should worry every American. It's an issue that has plagued the United States of America for years now. But is America's gun epidemic now simply out of control? As the country celebrated its Independence Day on the 4th of July, the celebrations were marred by a rash of mass shootings. In the space of just a couple of days, there were 16 mass shootings across 13 American states that left 15 people dead and 94 others injured. President Joe Biden once again called for tighter gun controls following the deadly shootings. Biden said, over the last few days, our nation has once again endured a wave of tragic and senseless shootings in communities across America. As our nation celebrates Independence Day, we pray for the day when our communities will be free from gun violence. While Illinois is one of the few states to have successfully banned assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, President Biden said much more must be done across America to address the epidemic of gun violence that is tearing our communities apart. Of course, what happened during the Independence Day celebrations is just the tip of the iceberg. The statistics on gun violence in the US are simply staggering. As of mid-June, the US has seen the most mass killings and deaths up to that point in a single year. Now listen to this. More than 13,900 people have been killed in mass shootings so far in 2023. At least 13 of these were in schools, and we're just halfway through the year. In 2022, there were over 44,000 deaths resulting from gun violence in that country. In 2021, almost 49,000 people died from gun-related injuries in the United States. These include both gun murders and gun suicides. The gun deaths in the US climbed sharply during the COVID pandemic, increasing a whopping 45% between 2019 and 2021. Now compare this to the number of lives that have been lost on account of terrorism in other parts of the world. Pakistan lost over 850 of its people in various terror attacks in the first quarter of 2023. Last year in the same period, Pakistan witnessed 293 such deaths. Afghanistan in 2022 saw 633 casualties in terror attacks, and war-torn Syria in 2022 saw 447 fatalities in various attacks. What does this data tell us? Simply put, many more people are dying due to gun violence in the United States every year than those being killed in terror attacks or even in war zones. Why, you wonder? The answer is quite simple and mind-boggling at the same time. In the United States of America, guns, including assault weapons, are as easy to buy off the shelf as candies. No background checks required, no questions asked. You could be a terrorist or someone with a serious mental health crisis. No problem. You can simply walk into your neighborhood store in the US and buy a gun. For years now, scores of Americans and Democrats in particular have been crying themselves hoarse, demanding tighter gun control measures. President Biden has been a staunch advocate for stricter gun laws. But in the name of the Second Amendment that confers on the US citizens the right to bear arms, the Republicans have been blocking in the US Congress repeated attempts in legislations to introduce such restrictions. Even as the all-powerful gun lobby in the US continues to hold sway, it is ordinary Americans who are paying an unimaginably heavy price, losing their loved ones, including little children, in schools to senseless gun violence. The question simply is, will American politicians ever wake up to the horrors of gun violence and actually do something about it? Or will innocent Americans continue to lose their lives at the altar of the Second Amendment?
All too well, educators now find themselves on the front lines of gun violence. Some of your members talked about it, Jill talked about it. With your help, we passed the most significant bipartisan gun safety legislation in 30 years, but it's not nearly enough. Congress needs to step up, pass common sense gun safety laws to protect our kids and educators. And by the way, arming teachers is not the answer. Arming teachers is not the answer. Banning assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, extensive background checks, they're part of the answer.
In a horrific incident on Monday night, we all know, a the shooter murdered 5 people and likely would have harmed even more had the police not bravely and swiftly apprehended the subject. As a city, we all have endured these tragedies together while investing hundreds of millions of dollars to address the problem. I want the public to know there is no greater priority for our administration than to reduce violence and create safer communities and a more just city for everyone. And we know that investing in prevention and law enforcement has to be part of that solution. But make no mistake, the root of the problem is the proliferation of guns in our city and in our country. Guns are the common denominator in every single shooting.
I know many of our residents are very concerned about news reports that we've heard, especially today, about violence in the district. We are also troubled by violent incidents that we've seen around the country, where violence and guns marred a holiday weekend. So we want to make sure that we are sending the clear message that our public safety apparatus and our team are working around the clock to keep district residents safe. And we want to make sure that we are using all of our tools to investigate these violent incidents and to hold the people responsible accountable.
I don't understand how someone can just do that to my brother. Like, I really love him. And the fact that you did this to us, like, for your own agenda, for your own reason, it's just really pissing me off. It's really pissing me off, and I'm going to miss him a lot. He taught me a lot about myself. He was like a second father to me. I never wanted to tell anyone that, but he was like a second father to me. He was gorgeous inside and out. I'm going to miss that beautiful smile. I really am. He had the best hugs.
And he took care of his family.
He had the worst cooking. He tried his best, okay, but he put his passion into it. And I just feel like with his cooking, we still ate it because he tried, and it's just like he couldn't cook, but he could sketch his butt off. He can like draw you right now all in this room with just a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper and just draw every detail of your face.
I don't know if you saw it, but right at the corner where this all went down, yesterday, 24 hours ago, actually 28 hours ago, there was a small bicycle, looked like a child's bicycle, which was sitting on that corner. And we were informed by some people who were there that that bicycle was dropped by someone, I presume a child, during the shooting. Hours later, nobody had touched it. Nice little bike. Hours later, nobody had touched it, as if they all felt they couldn't, that it was a memorial. It was some kind of a silent memorial.
Okay, let's understand, why are Americans so trigger happy, and why is the gun epidemic in the United States of America simply out of control? Let's go across to our guests. I'm joined by former diplomat Ambassador Manju Seth, Major General Sudhakar G, a defense expert, and Yashovardhan Azad, former Special Director, IB. Thanks very much to all of you for joining us. Ambassador Manju Seth, let me start with you. As I said, the figures are mind-boggling. You know, when you make a comparison between lives lost to gun violence in the US and lives lost to terrorism or in war zones in other parts of the world, the answer is quite astounding. If hundreds of people have died in terrorism in Pakistan and Afghanistan, and another few hundred in war-torn Syria, thousands and thousands have died in gun violence in the United States of America. We are just halfway through 2023. Close to 14,000 lives have already been lost to gun violence in the US. The figure in 2022 stood at over 44,000, in 2021 at 49,000. And like I said, the biggest problem seems to be that you can just walk into a store in any part of the United States of America. You could have a criminal record, you could be a terrorist, or you could be somebody with a serious mental health crisis, but there are no background checks done, no questions asked. Buying a gun, including an assault weapon, is as easy as buying a candy. And on top of that, you have the Republicans who, in the name of the Second Amendment, continue to defend the right of Americans to bear arms, and who continue to block all attempts and legislatures in the US Congress to introduce gun control measures. If you could just explain to us, the politics behind it. Why are things the way they are in the United States as far as gun violence is concerned?
I think this has been it's a very unfortunate thing that is happening in the US, and your figures are quite astounding. I was not aware of these huge numbers. But the politics behind it is very obvious. You yourself mentioned that the Republicans have been blocking it, and I think it's been on their agenda that, it's a free country and everybody should be allowed under the Constitution it's permitted, and even the Supreme Court has given a ruling saying that it is a fundamental right of every citizen of the US to own a gun. And that is something which is, irrespective of the fact that so many people are dying, they don't wish to do anything about it. And I think there's also an element in their minds, I think, because of the gun lobbying and the other aspects of guns, and I think an element of discrimination, I should say, a feeling of discrimination amongst a certain section of the people. And so they think that we should be permitted to have these guns and use them as and when we want. And if you look at what has been happening in the US, every year, people who are, majority of them are sort of not even mentally stable, and they have access to these guns, and in schools, young children get, all upset. So everything, if you see, it is about, getting out of hand. The Republicans are not allowing it for various reasons. They have their, they say it's our, we have certain concerns, and we have our, constituency, so to speak, whom they say that it is required for their self-defense guns. And the Democrats, on the other hand, are looking at it as a humanitarian crisis, a humanitarian issue, and saying that this needs to be done. That guns need to be regulated, at least, if not outright banned. At least assault vehicles, not vehicles, assault ammunition and assault guns should be prevented completely from being openly available to all and sundry, and resulting in this kind of indiscriminate killings and anybody and everybody having access to them. I think it has led to a very sad situation in the in the US. In the UK, for instance, you can't have these. You can't buy guns as easily, and that's why we see that UK doesn't witness this kind of mass shootings and mass killings because there is some control. Whereas here in the US, we can see how it is, and it is very difficult to to understand why they are not. Yes, in self-defense, yes, you need to. If they feel that it's part of their constitution, their fundamental right, they can hold on to some. Guns, but not like this. There has to be background check. There has to be some controls.